Hamadakiapi, Nick Tilson, Amachiapi, Chandea, Washdena Zapalo. This is Nick Tilson, and you are listening to Landback for the People. We're here in season 3, and we are excited about the conversation that we'll be having today. For many of you, if this is your first time tuning in to Landback for the People, this show is dedicated to telling stories about the Landback movement, about Indigenous resistance, and how people are organizing to not only get land back, stolen land back to the hands of Indigenous people, but also for the purpose of protecting Mother Earth. The Landback movement is not just about titles and lands. It's about restoring the connection to Mother Earth, and also the inherent right and responsibility that we have to protect Mother Earth. And on this show, we're going to dive into what's happening in Alaska and how Native people and Indigenous people in Alaska are fighting to protect the ecological biodiversity, to protect their subsistence rights, to protect the wildlife, to protect the salmon, and to keep minerals in the ground. Historically, roads being built into Alaska's pristine, ecologically diverse environment have been the ways in which they have exploited the people and exploited the lands. In many ways, the development and the building of roads into these sacred places have created exploitation. They've increased crime rates, they've increased tourism, they have increased extractive industries like mining, trying to mine zinc, copper, gold, precious metals. And one of those projects that is currently being proposed is the Ambler Road. Ambler Road is a road that's being proposed. It's over 200 miles of road in some of the most pristine land in the Western Hemisphere, and going across sacred lands, migratory spots for wildlife, birds, right into the heart of Athabaskan and Dene subsistence territories. And up in those territories, and you'll hear our guests talk about this, but subsistence up there it's their way of life still. They still subsist off of the land. Their ability to hunt, fish, gather is their both their right and it's their survival. And the Ambler Road is a project that is proposed to open up the Ambler district for mining. And that road is not even going to be open to the public. It's not going to be able to be used for access for hunting, fishing, and these other things. It's going to be used for straight up extraction and development. And so on the show today, we have Diloola, Rico, and Naawéiyaa, who are all Indigenous activists, organizers, hunters, fishers, gatherers, cultural organizers who are organizing in conjunction with tribes throughout Alaska to resist the building of Ambler Road. This project will be over somewhere between $700 million and about $1.4 billion. And that road has yet to be financed. But the extractive industries are trying to ram it down the throats of people in Alaska, and to try to use tax-paying dollars to pay for a road for private extraction. On this show, we're going to delve into how Indigenous people have been colonized in Alaska, how the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act also created Native corporations, and how those corporations and the system in Alaska has been set up for extraction and exploitation of Indigenous people and their land. As we jump into this show, we are going to talk to these amazing organizers who have come all the way from Alaska, right here to Miniluzaha, right here to the Cheysapa, and right here to the Osheti Shakoi, to share their story and to share their story of organizing and resistance to hold on to their way of life and protect Mother Earth. So let's jump into it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Landback for the People channel and to leave comments. Your engagement is really, really important to us to engage in these discussions and dialogues. So please follow us, subscribe to the channel, and leave comments. So we're here on Landback for the People. We got relatives that came all the way from Alaska. They brought the cold weather with them because it was like 70 degrees before they got here. And yesterday, I think it was about 5 degrees. So thanks for bringing all the cold weather with us. We're just now getting into winter down here in the Osheti Shakoi. So it's awesome to have all three of you here on the show. We're going to start off with each one of you being able to introduce yourself. We'll start off with Rico, and we'll make our way around the table.
I'm Ricko DeWilde. I'm from Hoosley, Alaska. I'm an Athabascan Indian, and it feels warm down here.
Zanazun, Diloola Erickson, Suuza, Gafto Hutsen Sedanslet, Kliga Hutana, Kliga Haka Hadaha Diga Ann. My name's Diloola Ann. My family comes from Gafto or Caltag, out on the Yukon River. I'm Kliga Hutana or Koyukon Athabascan.
Yak Etsutat, Naawéiyaa Tagaban, Koadle Kach Enach, Austin Yechat Kagwantan na Khutsiti, Kukit Yidosak ha Nakahiti. I'm Naawéiyaa Tagaban. I was born and raised in Juneau, Alaska, and I'm Tlingit and Cherokee and Filipino, and my ancestors come primarily from the Juneau area and Sitka and Hoona.
Well, it's good to have you all on the show. Mad respect for all of you and all the work that you do on your homelands and for your communities and for your people. Just for those that are listening and watching out there, I want them to have the opportunity, and I'll start with Rico, to tell a little bit about your life. You know, a lot of people don't realize how pristine and that there's a subsistence lifestyle up there. And, you know, what's it like living up there? Where do you live at? How is it unique to other places?
Well, I grew up about 100 miles upriver from Hoosley. Hoosley is a village about 300 people, hour and 40-minute plane ride, 8-seater from Fairbanks in Narrow City. That's our hub. And pretty much out there, we have to hunt to survive, basically. We have to eat moose. In fall time, we get our moose, September. Then right now it's freeze up. It's, early or late November right now, but it's like a month behind on freeze up this year. A little warmer this year, but
it's been like that the last couple of years. Freeze up keep happening later and later.
It's happening later and later. Winters aren't as cold anymore either, and we want the cold up there because that's how we get around to hunt and trap, is with our snow goes. And
gotta freeze the river because that's our highway.
Yeah, the rivers, we have to cross them. We travel overland or along the rivers, and that's literally our highways in the winter. Or just to cross them can be dangerous. And right now we're going to be looking for bear dens soon, black bears in the dens. So that's our food sources, wild animals. So that's why it's so important for us to really try to preserve our way of life and our culture, because that's our food.
Yeah, most of our villages, they're off the road system, so they're not road accessible. You can only fly in the wintertime and then boat down in the summertime, but it's a long boat ride. And we get barges. That's what brings some of our food down. But the grocery stores are, because you have to freight everything in, the prices in the grocery stores are expensive. A gallon of milk could be like upwards of $10. We don't always have fresh food out there. Like the produce that gets out there sometimes is like near its end. And
everything we eat is wild game too. I mean, it's moose or what's on the table.
How much is a dozen of eggs?
I don't know. I
really
think
don't.
Rico's like, I don't know. I don't shop at the store.
A lot of us don't be eating eggs out there too. You know, it's mostly like we'll have pancakes maybe in the morning and maybe fried up with some Spam on the side or something. But mostly we're eating like animal. Like,
I mean, even in Fairbanks, it's kind of expensive. A dozen of eggs is like, it could be anywhere between like $4 to $6 in town. And then
depends
it's
if you want organic.
It's like 10 to 12 in the village.
Yeah.
And you've all been seeing pretty big impacts of climate change on your communities?
The winter storms have become like more frequent. They're almost expected now. Things like typhoons that are supposed to be like 10-year cycles, they're becoming like almost an every year thing. And where I'm from, Caltech, there's a little portage that cuts right across out to the ocean. So when we get hit by coastal storms, it comes inland. And so like that big typhoon we just had out on the coast, those winds came upriver, and there was a big, massive blowdown event. There was hundreds and hundreds of trees down all over. And,
thousands, literally.
Yeah,
all the way up around Hooslea, too.
Yeah, it knocked out the power in like all of our villages. All of our villages run on little microgrids, and so the power went down, and like Nalado didn't have power for 5 days. And it wasn't cold enough to keep all the freezers frozen, and so people had to run their generators, and they're starting to run out of gas. And if the freezers melt, all the game they hunted is gone.
Yeah, and then like to get around to get your firewood to go hunting, we go through timbered areas. We call them portages. It cuts through from lakes to another lake system or a river. And when those trees went down this year, it's like cut off a lot of those portages. So it's going to be a lot of work started. It's already starting now. People are cutting the trails open again, but it's crazy. Just trees everywhere. And even just to go back, you're not always on the snow machine trail. You got to cut off, like if I'm wolfing, looking for a place to catch wolves, I'll have to go into like different areas off the main trails, and just having all those trees down is going to make it real difficult. That's one thing that's going to really change with how the weather affected us. And a lot of ways, though, even like caribou used to come in around our camp growing up every winter after freeze up. When everything freeze over the lakes, they'd travel in and winter around my cabin. And the ground had a lot of high bluffs and banks around the lakes, and there's a lichen on it called caribou moss. It's white moss. They knock that snow down off those bluffs and those big banks on the lake, and it makes it possible for him to get to that lichen real easy by being on a high spot and knocking it down. So after over time, the ground is thawed out underneath, and everything kind of settled, flattened out. So we lost a lot of that habitat for caribou, so the caribou don't migrate inland. So that's one big thing that really cut off our winter meat supply right there. So we're more reliant on moose now and not getting those winter caribou coming in. And along with a bunch of other stuff, that
and we're starting to see like climate change is impacting the moose populations too. Yeah, they're having a harder time in the winter with we're getting, they call them ice on snow events more frequently, where it'll warm up like a flash heat wave in the winter time. Everything will melt, we'll get rain, and then it'll freeze again, and it's like ice crusting everything, and that makes it hard for the moose to get around, and they get preyed on because our wolf populations.
That crust cuts their legs up when they walk through, because there might be, say, like 3-4 feet of snow, and then there's that much crust in there. It's that ice going to keep cutting on their legs when they walk, so they have a real hard time. And then that gives an easier chance for wolves because they stay on top of that crust, so they really get hit with predators. And like she said, ice covering everything makes it real hard for them for getting their food. Even caribou.
They said north, even the baby moose, they'll eat those frozen willow buds. They'll have the ice covering them, and they eat it, and it bloats their stomach, so they can't eat anything else, and then that's how they end up starving.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's that midwinter rainstorms we get every winter now is wreaking havoc. And one other thing it's doing too is our birch. What we use them for is like making snowshoes and stuff. They bend, and then they stay that way once they dry. But the ice clicks on those birch, and those trees bend all the way down and snap, or they just stay that way, all bent down. They don't grow good that way, so it's killing off a lot of our birch up there. And the moose do eat a lot of birch too. So,
yeah.
And these are all changes you all are experiencing, like
in real time.
In the last couple decades, really.
Yeah, within 15, 20 years, it's really changed fast.
What about you, Naawéiyaa? What are some of the things that you've seen?
I mean, I live in a very different place, right? I live in Southeast Alaska. It's a temperate rainforest. But, what we're seeing is, where I live, we live pretty close to a glacier. And so every year now, that glacier, there's this basin that fills with rainwater and meltwater from the glacier, and the river system then floods in the fall. And so there are like houses falling into the river in Juneau. And it's happened for the last decade, but it's definitely, like in the last 5 years, it's definitely like the water level has drastically increased. And they expect, like the scientists who are studying this, they expect it to get worse for over the next like decade, and then it'll slowly get better, because what's going to happen is eventually the glacier will melt enough that it retreats back far enough that like that basin won't hold water anymore. But it's like people's houses are.
I've seen every couple of falls in a row. Is a crazy video of those rivers. Just
Well, even in like southeast,
I haven't seen. I think on the Weather Channel they showed Juneau, Alaska.
Oh, yeah.
And some houses falling into
Yeah, the Mendenhall River. Well,
yeah, and then what's crazy is like that house, they wanted to sell, the people who owned it tried to sell it after. So like half of the house fell into the river and they were trying to sell half a house for like $400,000.
Holy.
That's crazy. The other thing I wanted to point out though too is like Juneau, like Southeast generally has seen the shifting in the climate too. Like when we were younger, I grew up in Southeast.
For sure.
We used to get like
Significant amounts of
like
snow.
10, 12 feet of snow sometimes, and it would stick all
all
winter
winter.
for like a couple months at a time, and now the snow don't stick
Now
anymore.
it doesn't. Yeah. Like,
and
I don't think we saw our first snow literally like I flew here on Sunday and that was the first snow. Like I woke up and I was like, wow, there's snow on the ground. But
That's wild.
Yeah.
And
it's like
December now.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that wild?
That's
And-
Southeast, so around
Yeah,
Fairbanks.
well,
but it used to
It
not be
used
like
to not
that
be
when
like
I was
that.
a kid, though.
Alaska
it used
is
to,
huge,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
like the
The-
weather patterns are shifting north. So like how it used to be and like
And
how we're watching
yeah.
the change in Southeast is kind of what's happening in Anchorage now.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
And
yeah.
it's like
yeah.
kind of what we're starting to see in the interior.
that's right. Because we
used
don't
to
have much snow at all.
Well, we used to get those ice on snow events in Hoona too. Like I remember
Yeah.
it turning like everything into basically an ice rink every once in a while. And that's what we're seeing starting to happen in the north.
I touched on this a little bit in the intro, but you know the history of how folks in Alaska were colonized and how a system was established really for extraction and to extract the mineral, to extract oil, to extract resources from Alaska, and they took a lot of lessons, learned from the lower 48, and they imposed a different system in Alaska that, quite frankly, made it easier
Yeah.
for them to extract resources by setting up the native corporations. Can we dive into that a little bit? A little bit of Alaska politics,
Sure.
101 for the listeners out there, so they kind of understand the political landscape.
Yeah, so I don't know if people are familiar with the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. It's the pipeline that runs from the North Slope all the way down to Valdez. And when they struck oil on the North Slope, they needed a corridor to put that road through, but they hadn't settled any of their land claims with any of the native people that had lived there. And
Well, Alaska Native people since about the 1920s had been trying to sue the federal government because we knew all along, we were like, you wronged us. This was all our land. And we had tried multiple times to sue the federal government. And there were a number of cases that got dismissed until eventually
they couldn't really ignore it anymore.
Yeah, they couldn't
They had
ignore it
to
anymore.
settle them,
Because they had to figure out how to create a corridor for the pipeline. And they figured that the only way to do that was to address Alaska Native land claims.
And so that's how we got what's known as ANCSA, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. And it settled the land claims for the whole state. And instead of having a treaty with our tribes, they established native for-profit corporations where we became shareholders. So we're shareholders in our corporations. There's 12 regional and then like 200 something village corporations. And they own the land a little bit differently. So the regional corporations, they own the surface and the subsurface rights on the land, and they have big swaths of land. So I'm a Doyon limited shareholder, and we're the largest private landowner in the state. And then our village corporations, they own the surface rights, but they don't own the subsurface rights for their land. And the land is the asset for these corporations. So what we saw a lot of when they were first established was corporations going belly up and the land getting sold.
Yeah. Well, a number of these corporations, right? So like this is 1971, and these are like, like you can look at quotes from the folks who were, these are like 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds who are suing the federal government to try and, like you look at quotes from them and they're like, we just wanted the land. Like we knew this was our land and we knew we had to get it. And so they took the deal that they could get, which was a bad deal, of course, because like the federal government wasn't going to offer us a good deal.
Well, and it's always a bad deal when it comes to the land.
And the original draft, the first draft of ANCSA was supposed to be like, it had an end time.
Yeah.
It had like
1990. Well, they said it was
a
a
5 or 10
sunset
year.
clause is what they called it, and it was supposed to be 40 years and then the ANCSA corporations would go public. So originally, in order to be an ANCSA shareholder, you had to live in the region that is covered by that corporation, and so there are like different regions in Alaska, right? Like I'm a Sea Alaska shareholder because my family is from Southeast Alaska, and that's the corporation for the like regional corporation. And in order to enroll in those corporations, you had to be a 25% by blood quantum Alaska Native and live in the region. And so I don't know where I was going with that. You said something that I got lost off track.
Let me chime in here for a minute, just to pause for a minute for folks out there listening. Like this mechanism, like this whole system was put in place for the purpose to steal the land and to extract the resources. I mean, they literally took a whole people and tribes and people and made you become shareholders.
Yeah.
Made us become developers of our own land.
For the purpose of extracting those resources far away from your own communities and your own people. And so,
sometimes in our own
like in my case, like in Southeast Alaska, they ended up with a lot of timberlands, and so they clear cut massive areas. Sea Alaska did in the 80s, and devastated like huge swaths of land, in order to make profit. But it was because like these were people who they were like fishermen, and then all of a sudden they're a CEO of a corporation, and they're like trying to do the best that they could for their people in the system that they had, And like it's a flawed system, and like you're creating harm, but also like there was only so much they could do, I guess, really, but yeah.
But basically, it forced us to become capitalists.
Yeah. It's like, and I think that's the story of how the United States government has used capitalism as a tool to colonize indigenous people and to extract resources from us. I mean, I always talk about that on this show often, about all of the political and legal systems that have been created in place have created for that purpose. And that when we talk about land back, it's not just about like getting the land back. It's actually about dismantling the systems that not only made it possible for the stealing of the land in the first place, but the systems that have been in place to maintain the continued theft of the land and the extraction of the resources to this day.
Yeah.
And that's why the land back movement is in many ways an abolitionist movement that is about abolishing those systems, because they have not done anything positive for the environment or for the people.
Yeah.
And the land back movement is really about, restoring and healing, Mother Earth and people.
Because like the crazy thing is like some of the ANCSA corporations have like they get a special contracting status with the Alaska Native corporations. They have 8A contracting status with the federal government, which means they get special contract rates and they get to make special bids and they get preference for those bids. And so some of the ANCSA corps do things like help serve ICE facilities food, and like they do these things that are like inherently against our values, right? Like helping enforce the border, and various other things like that, or like building roads to resources,
Yeah. Well, before we get it, we're gonna get to Ambler Road, because I told the guests that we were getting there, or the audience. But before we get there, just in the context of this whole conversation, it's always one of the questions that I always like to ask all guests on this show, and it's, what does land back mean to you personally? And so I wanted to start with Rico and make our way around the table here about what does land back mean to you?
When I think about it, it's like taking back control of your land, because the land is what provided for us for thousands and thousands of years, and we can't just let it get destroyed or get in the way where it's people come in and they start extracting resources and putting money as the most important thing, and we lose everything, including our culture. So land back, to me, represents protection of our land and our way of life.
Yeah, I would echo that. Landback to me means that we're able to govern ourselves, our subsistence way of living on our own land. So because of the way our land claims were settled, we have no treaty rights. And so us as tribal members, even though our ways of life have always been to live off the land, like how we were talking earlier about hunting and fishing, we're regulated in the state and federal systems as citizens of the United States, not as tribal members. And so we don't have any tribal preference, and that creates a lot of issues for our ability to even have access. We have to pay for permits. We have to, abide by their regulations. Like one of the major impacts right now in the Yukon is that our salmon are in a collapse because of how the state and the feds have managed them. And because of that, they've restricted subsistence fishing on the Yukon entirely. So we're not allowed to fish on the Yukon for our salmon, a relative we've had a relationship with since time immemorial, right? And so landback to me means that we're able to be self-determined and govern how we hunt and fish on our own lands and have a say in the management of those.
Oh man, this is a hard question because for me, it's about all of those things. It's also for me about like sovereignty, right? Like our inherent right to sovereignty as Indigenous people and to like govern our own land and make decisions about it. And also for me, it's about like a revitalization of a relationship that we had. Like for me, I think about, like there is archaeological evidence that shows that Tlingit people have been in Southeast Alaska for at least 11,000 years. And, like in that time, we could have deforested the entire, landscape of Southeast Alaska, but we managed it for the long term, right? I think about like when Westerners showed up in Alaska, they thought it was just this Eden, right? Like it was bountiful and there was just so much to eat. The fish were bigger than the people, like we had 150-pound king salmon, at contact, like, but that wasn't like an accident. It was something that we managed, right? Like we carefully managed these resources over thousands of years. And so for me, it's about like reliving into that. Like, how do we come back into that relationship with the land, right? And like, how do we like, of course that's really complicated because like the land is managed in a very different way than it was when we, managed it. But, like for me, it's a lot about that, like coming back into relationship with the land, because often I think, like in Southeast Alaska, there's just so much lack of access, for our people for Alaska Native people to resources that we lived off of forever, like I know so many Native people who don't have boats, so they don't get to go fishing, or, who don't own a car, so they can't make it out the road to go, pick greens in the spring or whatever, all sorts of things, but like that, like non-Native people have tons of access to, and so, for me, it's about like, how do we like recreate that relationship or revitalize it, rebuild it, like, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting question for us too, because we just shared all about Inks and how we are technically the landowners, right? But we don't really have a say in how that land is managed, even though we're the shareholders that own it.
Yeah.
And how that system,
theoretically, I do own the land, right? As a shareholder of Sea Alaska, like my corporation owns land, but like I actually have no say in how it's managed,
Yeah, no, this is great and great dialogue, because I think that some people have the misconception, right? People have the misconception, oh well, they're shareholders of this corporation, therefore all they have to do is they're the bosses, so all they have to do is tell their corporation to do this, and their corporation is going to listen to them.
Yeah.
But that's not really quite how it
Would be
works.
great, huh?
If only.
Yeah. All three of us are like, wow, wouldn't it be so nice?
Seem like a lot of the corporations too are run by like non-natives, and even a lot of people running the machine is not native. Telling the ones
It's
in power
true.
what to do.
Well, and also capitalism, capitalism's capitalism, regardless of
the people who
who's running it.
make the better resume get hired. And so it is true, like a lot of non-native people work at ANCSA corporations or in like subsidiaries associated with them.
Yeah. Well, I think what you said is like really the key, right? Is like land back to you is restoring our relationship to the land. And that's what our corporations directly severed, right? It forced us to look at our land as a commodity, not as a relative.
Yep. Yeah. No, I mean, I spent quite a bit of time fishing, hunting, organizing in the Prince William Sound. I fished out of there. I helped block a road over there, the Copper River Road, when I was like 15 years old. And so I got to see like firsthand what you're talking about too, of just like I couldn't understand it at first, because there's like the native villages and then there's the native corporations, and my first thought was like, like, why are they letting these corporations do this? But the reality is they were set up to do exactly what they're doing. They're set up to extract, and they're actually set up to divide the people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But because it happens so often, like you'll have like people who are family members, like cousins or siblings even. Like one person is like the leader of the corporation, one person's the leader of the tribe, and they'll be on opposite sides of an issue,
Yeah, you'll have like someone,
and they'll be
from a
fighting with each
different
other.
village.
Like,
like you'll like a bunch of downriver people run it now.
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
Someone from upriver will be like, we need more people from our area.
Colonization does its number. Well, when we get back from our break, we are going to jump into talking about Ambler Road, what is the latest with the campaign, give the people an update, and so we'll be back in a few minutes.
Hamadakiepi. This is Foster Kunair Hogan, the Bison Coordinator at NDN Collective. First, I want to express immense gratitude to you all for supporting the Feed the People campaign. With your support, we raised over $86,000 of our $100,000 campaign goal. And with those funds, we purchased and distributed bison meat to families in need and covered processing fees for tribes. And we're very proud of these efforts and impact. However, there is a gap for us to meet the goal, and even though the government is reopened and SNAP benefits are being distributed and paid out, hunger and the epidemic of food insecurity amongst our people continues, especially during these holidays. So please consider donating to the Feed the People campaign so we can meet our goal and we can care for those those that cannot help and sustain themselves. Pilamayapi.
It was brought to my attention that Rico was a reality TV personality on Life Below Zero.
It's like the Kardashians.
Our local celebrity.
The locals for like 7 years, huh?
Yeah, I believe so. It was around 7 years, I believe they followed. I think I started in 2017, and it last episode played last year, so whatever that is. Yeah, about 7 years, seasons.
Yeah, what was that? What was that like? Being a TV reality, personality.
It was all right. It was hard when they have to follow you on snow goes, and a lot of them are coming out of the states like California and other places that never drove a snow go before. So getting them unstuck constantly and trying to get them to keep up with me was probably the hardest part. And being nice, like it's so easy to turn into a dick, and then because
you can't even drive a snow go.
Yeah, it's just and especially you're trying to hunt too. There's a certain way you walk and move when you're hunting. Especially like moose, you don't bump the ground with your feet, because when an animal hear a bump on the ground, it's gonna get scared and run away. So, might be going to check a lake right off the river system. I land the boat and then just getting into that lake quietly. It's not too big a deal for me, and even with my kids, I'm pretty tough when I trained them up how to hunt. But imagine trying to train 4 full-grown people following you. It's hard to be nice.
Did they mess up your hunts quite a few times?
Oh, yeah, they messed up my hunts a lot of times. And I try to be nice, though. It's so hard to, though. And then they had these live mics on me in the end. They call it it was some kind of name they had. It's like always playing the audio from you. And sometimes I'll be like driving a snow machine, or they do something dumb behind me, and I'm turning like, idiot, I cuss them like, they're gonna hear that later how I really feel about them, so it's that was the hardest part though. And it's easy to become that person too, because they kind of cater to me and how are you doing today, and they're clumsy and they're nice, so it's so easy to be kind of too strong and too mean to them. And I don't want to do that, because in our culture we believe like you shouldn't treat people bad, it's pretty much all cultures. But I didn't want to like start bringing that home to my kids and start talking, so I had to always check myself to not be too mean, just because I didn't want to bring it home with me. I mean, you see how I'm not like a A-list celebrity or nothing, but you see how some celebrities end up treating people. I don't want to be that guy. So if I ever got there, that is. I never got there. I'm D-list.
Well, there was a time somebody sent me a video or something about you trying to spear a moose.
Oh yeah, I tried.
What happened there?
It wasn't with the TV show at the time. It was some people that came out from, they wanted to film me just for YouTube content or whatever. They were from Poland and completely new to Alaska, never seen moose. But anyway, I called this bull from across, doing cow calls. I came around the side and I was on the edge of the cut bank where my boat was parked and then called it in, did some cow calls, but it ended up attacking me. And I couldn't get close enough to throw the spear and get him in the vitals. I wanted lung heart area from the side, so I had to be close enough to the side. But by the time it turned around and facing straight at me, I can't trust getting that spear inside of it, right, from the front, because it'd be hard to hit the lungs, too much bone. And it ended up attacking me, and I jumped out of the way. I knew if it came down to that, what to do. It's kind of like when you watch those bullfights, how they hop to the side.
Yeah.
So I dove to the side. But the camera guy wasn't ready, and he got scared, and he was backing up, and he lost focus on where the cut bank was, the river bank, and he fell off the bank and into the boat, luckily.
Your little clip went pretty viral on Facebook, though.
I know. I always say, shit, I'm not even on Facebook. So when something's really good, it gets texted to me. That's why I'm like, oh shit, this shit must be going viral online.
Really got to see it.
Yeah.
It didn't go super viral in my opinion. It was pretty good though. I mean, next, if I ever do it again, I'm going to be in the timber where there's trees. You could stand behind trees because I've called them close enough, but never where there's just willows. You know, that moose is so big and strong, you're going to come right through that. So if I ever do it again, it'll be in the timber, and hopefully I don't get killed.
Yeah, full-grown moose is what, like 1,600 pounds?
Yeah, at least. This was a young bull that went at me, but yeah, it's dangerous there.
Even the little ones are big.
Yeah, they're big, and they'll run you over. And I've been attacked too before when I had guns and stuff, but never with just a spear, you know, so it was a little different. It took me a while. I've done it more than once. I've called them up, but I never had one come that close to me where I could almost get it with a spear. And I mean, when I first started doing that spear feels pretty much like nothing, you know, when you're in that moment. But you got to be able to not be scared and make no mistakes. I don't want to freeze up, so I basically just hop to the side and let it go by me.
You think that cameraman will ever go with you again?
I don't think he'll do it.
that was the first and last time right there.
Yeah, it's a little too dangerous.
Well, give him a tree stand.
I think it's difficult to do in that sense too, because I got to think about the camera guy too. I can't just think about myself, you know.
Yeah, you're so used to just being like,
yeah,
on the
so
land
maybe
by
with
yourself.
GoPros or something, you know, because I don't know, man, because I can get behind a tree, but what's the camera guy? I got to think for him, and they're not woodsy people, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thanks for indulging me in that story and for the audience. We're gonna talk about Ambler Road, and so give us some background on what is Ambler Road and what are its intentions and what's happening up there.
Yeah, so it's the project's name is the Ambler Access Project, but it's commonly talked about as the Ambler Road. It's a 211-mile road that'll spur off of what we call the Hall Road.
Proposed road. Because it's not going to happen.
There you go.
And it's supposed to come off the spur road and cut across western Alaska to reach what they call the Ambler Mining District. And that's a mining district that's owned by a company called Ambler Metals. And they're 50-50 owned, 50% by Trilogy Metals, which is a Canadian-owned mining company, and 50% owned by South 32, which is an Australian-owned mining company. And they have a partnership agreement with NANA, which is one of the regional ANCSA corporations in Alaska. And so that's what the road is meant to create access to those mining districts so that they can mine, I think predominantly for copper. They said there's some other minerals out there too, like cobalt, gallium, uranium, some other critical minerals.
But like at a lesser
Grade,
amount.
deposit, yeah.
What's
amount.
crazy is Ambler Road is named the Ambler. What's the Ambler Mining Company? Is
Ambler Mining. It's the Ambler Mining District, and it's Ambler Metals.
and its
is
own
the
Ambler Metals
miner.
is actually a foreign. Australia and Canada owns the whole thing, except for 10% goes to the United States somehow with Trump signing something.
And so this
so
road
nothing
is,
to do with the village of Ambler or the people of Ambler or local
and they don't
Alaskans.
own it or anything like that. Alaskans don't own it. U.S. citizens don't even own
They
it.
changed,
we own
they changed their
10%.
name to Ambler Metals to sound real local, but it's all
Yeah.
just extraction from foreign entities.
And so this road has been a proposed project, and it's been talked about since I want to say about 2010 or so. They've been trying to develop the
So
road.
about 15 years.
Yeah.
Well,
and
I mean, even longer than that though, because they found the copper deposit in like the 50s out there, and then when they passed ANILCA, the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act, which created national parks in the state, they made room for a corridor, which was in 1980. So they made room for a corridor for a road through, there's
the
a
gates of the
clause.
Arctic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that ANILCA, what Naawéiyaa was just talking about, that act created a bunch of our national parks and refuges that we have up in Alaska, and they put that provision in there so that the federal government who owned the Gates of the Arctic National Park would allow for a road or a land access corridor. So they weren't supposed to stop the road from going through. And then it was 2010.
Of course, it's not. It was never a guarantee that the road would be built. Just
If
a
there
guarantee that
came a
if they
time.
ever were to develop the road, that the federal government would make way for it.
But they
Yeah,
wouldn't
it's
stop
a
it.
230-mile road. It runs east to west.
211 miles.
Okay, it runs
yeah.
east to west, but the thing is it's going to be there's leases. If you look at the lease map, they're all over. They're going to run south to north off that road, and even where my cabin is, where I grew up, it's 100 miles out of Husla, and we're at kind of the foothills of where the mountains start. In 2017, I think it was, when I started noticing helicopters flying out of those mountains, I was like, what the heck is helicopters doing? I didn't think nothing of it at the time, but I heard of Ambler Road and stuff, but they're looking for where they can extract, finding the best possible places
Yeah,
to
doing
put
core
mining.
samples and stuff.
Yeah. In a
Yeah.
nutshell, it's going to industrialize the Arctic. That's what they want.
right.
Is they want this private access haul road to get out there and to create these mining districts and then
Yeah.
truck all the mineral
Mining
out.
is messy, too. I mean, that
Well, and
extraction.
currently, Gates of the Arctic National Park and Preserve is actually the only national park and preserve in the United States that doesn't have a single road in it. So there's also that, I guess.
Yeah, so this is the last national park that doesn't have a road, but this road is being proposed to go right through
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, cut straight through it. Yeah.
And the impacts of mining on the water, the byproducts of mining, everything
That's the
from
scary part.
arsenic,
right there.
mercury.
Yeah.
Just simple.
Well, and they
So-
would be trucking out the ore along that. That's why they want the road, because it's cheaper. They could extract the ore and then ship it out via helicopter or something. There are ways that they could do it, but it's cheaper for them to truck it out on this road. And so there's also you have to think about fugitive dust or whatever they call it. All of the tailings, that stuff
I
that's
think
going
when
to be
they dig
carried along.
into, when they mine, they always like those streams too, especially for gold. And all that road cuts through all the main spawning grounds for all of our fish in that basically interior Alaska,
What? And you can't
all the way
mine.
down to the mouth.
And you can't mine without using water.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
Yeah.
you can't. And
you
the-
have to use water to
Yeah.
constantly
And those
mine.
salmon go thousands of miles just to get up there and the local fish go up to the headwaters, all that. They go up there to have eggs in the cleanest, most pristine, oxygen-rich waters and cold water. And when they mine and tear into streams, it's going to cloud all that up. It's going to kill off all the spawning grounds, is what I would think.
Yeah, so the road was proposed, right? They started the process for getting it permitted and everything, and the tribes, they banded together in the area, and there's, I think 88 tribal resolutions of
Yeah, something like
opposition
that.
to the road now. And it was permitted under the Trump administration. An EIS, an environmental impact statement, was produced, finalized, and they had the permits and everything ready to go in the first Trump administration, and then the tribes sued because they sued for they were missing critical information in that environmental
In
impact
particular, it was
statement.
the subsistence.
It was
section,
the
right?
ANILCA 8, Title 8, has provision for subsistence priorities and protections around subsistence rights, which is another thing that tribes sued for in Alaska, right? We had one of our landmark cases is the Katie John case, and that established our subsistence priority. And under that, the Tanana Chiefs Conference sued the federal government for not making the right steps in that environmental impact statement. And so what happened was under the Biden administration, a new supplemental environmental impact statement was created, executed, like produced. They went through the whole public process and everything. And then the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, ruled for a no action alternative. So the Bureau of Land Management said that this road, the risks were unmitigatable and that it was too risky and that they could not do it because it violated our subsistence rights.
It was an irreparable harm.
And then the Trump administration, season 2 happened, right? And so now they have passed executive orders. They have demanded that the BLM overturn their decision. And so the federal government now has all of the right-of-way and all of the permitting that they need for the federal and the state portions of this road. However, there's about 30 miles of the road that's supposed to cross ANCSA Corporation land. And so there's, I think, 20 miles or maybe 12 miles of Doyon land and about like 15 or 12 miles of NANA land that the road has to cross. And both those entities, both Doyon and NANA, have withdrawn their right-of-way leases to the developers, which is the Alaska Industrial Development Authority.
And Export Authority.
And Export Authority. It's called ADA is the acronym. So ADA is the developer behind it. So it's kind of a complicated kind of mess of a situation, right? Where we have these foreign developers that want this mine site, and then we have our state-run entity that's supposed to develop the road for the foreign developers, and then us as Alaskans, we get nothing from it, right?
And they essentially want to use public tax-paying dollars to develop a road for a foreign company.
It would be a private road.
It wouldn't be private though. Once the public funds are used, it's gonna everybody come in.
And they want to develop this road. They want to use tax-paying dollars to develop this road for a foreign development company that would essentially, violate your rights as Native people in Alaska, and also put the ecosystem in jeopardy. So one question. Besides natives, why aren't the rest of Alaskans up in arms about the use of public funds? Or are they?
Alaska is real right wing, so whatever Trump says, a lot of them are going to jump on board, I feel like. But I think
like
a lot of people are against it too.
I feel like a lot of people just don't know. That's been like one of our big pushing points in our advocacy is we're really trying to uncover like where these finances are coming from and who is really footing the bill and like what the impacts for us as just Alaskans. Like never mind us as tribal members, us as Alaskans.
Well, and not only that, it's like the ore is, as far as we know, would get shipped to China. So it's like at no point in the process.
That's the major claim for this road is that this road is critical, right? Because we need these critical
minerals.
Yeah, and it's for national security.
Yeah, well, those are whenever they say critical minerals and they say things like in the pursuit of national security, it's their way of trying to block resistance.
It's their way of trying to force it, huh?
Yeah, and also block resistance because I think if they can say that means an interference, right? Any resistance as it relates to the road can be, you're interfering with national security.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And we've seen that with all the pipelines down here, right?
Yeah.
KXL, Dakota Access. This is quote unquote critical infrastructure, and the interference of pipelines, and the development of this critical infrastructure means that you're interfering with national security. You're putting everybody else at risk.
It's like you're a terrorist or something.
Yeah,
that's what that's the precursor.
Well, and like the industry is really good at selling the lie that like this is gonna create jobs.
For sure thing.
It's a for sure thing, but that this is gonna have all these benefits for Alaskans. It's gonna create all of this like industry jobs. Like it's gonna bring wealth and prosperity to your communities, when in reality it's not, right? Like
there are already plenty of mining jobs open in the state that Native people aren't applying for. So
or Alaskans. I mean, I think
they ship in so many people from outside
state,
for mining jobs in Alaska. It's kind of wild. Like
Yeah.
I know a guy who lives in Illinois, and he comes to Greens Creek, which is just north of Juneau, for 2 weeks, and then flies back home to Illinois, and then is home for 2 weeks, and then flies back. And yeah.
But I think that's a lot of like Alaskans have bought that story that we need this to generate revenue for our state and stuff like that. When in reality, we get a really small portion of the revenue that the mines will create.
Well, and I think often it seems like that they want to make it kind of confusing. They want to on purpose because it's part of the strategy. Make it confusing, throwing big dollars around, saying, "Hey, it's going to have an economic impact. This is a good thing. We need to diversify income." Using all of these talking points and taglines to the point where people are like, go along with it.
Well, and even like setting aside major portions of their budget to basically like, flash, like have all these flashy shows of like local support, right? When
Well, they do things like give away like snowmobiles and
Well, when we were
stuff,
digging into the financials of Trilogy and South 32 and Ambler Metals specifically, Ambler Metals set aside $1 million for community outreach.
Yeah, it's like all along, pipeline routes and stuff. They put money into building playgrounds, and they'll even brand playgrounds like the colors of the oil companies, and say and have a ribbon cuttings, and bring the community out and give away hot dogs and do a whole thing and call it community engagement. Hey, look we're doing something good. When you step off the plane in Minot, North Dakota, like the little kids play area at the airport is, branded the oil companies because they
smart tactics.
Yeah, it's tactics, to show, hey, we are quote unquote improving the community while we're extracting resources, violating your rights, polluting the water.
But that support has a timeline too, right? Like soon as those companies are gone, that support is gone, and then we're left with all of the cleanup.
Yeah,
and they never clean it up.
No.
And a lot of times it can be cleaned up.
Yeah. Destruction is too heavy, especially to the animals. All the hunters that come in with a road like that, it's going to be like a freaking zoo when it comes to fall time hunting.
So like for the listeners out there and people that are listening and watching, like when we say a road to roadless areas, what we're really talking about, it's a catalyst for destruction. It's the catalyst for destruction, for development that threatens everything about Alaska that makes it special.
Yeah, all
that
the
makes
animals, all the native people that live out there in the villages.
Yeah, and I think even on like a global perspective too, one of the things we were talking about earlier is like you were saying this is like one of the last unroaded areas, right? And
in the world,
it's some of the last intact remaining ecosystem that we have, and that is critical as a protective factor for climate change. We, at the opening of the show, we talked about all the changes we're seeing, and most of that area, there's tundra and there's wetland, and that is those are carbon sinks, right? And so if you disturb all of that and you push a road through and you have all these toxins going into that environment, it's just bad news.
And we're in a place, where there's climate change is, a global crisis facing all of humanity. And I think that the reality is that we need to be finding ways to increase ecological biodiversity, not destroy it. Because it's a key indicator in fighting climate change, and it's a key indicator in not only fighting climate change, but restoration and of indigenous cultures, languages, subsistence lifeways that are imperative, and it's part of the ways that we actually implement practices of traditional ecological knowledge and putting that into practice. And I think sometimes these big words get thrown around kind of, when the reality is it's like these lifeways are fundamentally important to protecting Mother Earth, but indigenous people were doing it on behalf of all humanity, at this moment in history,
Yep.
So what can people do? So our listeners and folks out there, how can people take action to support all of you that are organizing to fight the Ambler Road and protect Mother Earth?
Yeah, so we coordinate and we collaborate with a group that organizes it's called the Defend the Sacred Alaska, and we we work on like the Ambler Road, and we work on a lot of other different issues. So that's like one of the hard things about Alaska is we're touted as America's resource warehouse, right? Like all of the critical minerals, all of the development that you'll need for national security is in Alaska. And so Defend the Sacred, we don't just focus on Ambler Road, we focus on a lot of other issues too. There's other like massive mine projects that are proposed, like the Donlin Gold Mine, the graphite one. So following and supporting Defend the Sacred will be really critical for making sure that, you know, the organizers on the ground have resources to keep organizing. And so you can follow Defend the Sacred on Instagram. And so
it's at Defend the Sacred AK.
Yeah. And you can follow them on Instagram and Facebook. We have a website, Defend the Sacred Alaska, and we could send you links for show notes. And you could donate to Defend the Sacred. We also have a No Ambler Road active bonfire campaign, so you can purchase some of the No Ambler Road merch, and then proceeds from that will go towards the work. And then there's also
two things. Where can people donate, and then where can people purchase the shirts?
On Defend the Sacred Alaska, there's a donation link.
Okay.
And then I can give you the link for our bonfire campaign for the shirts and stuff.
Okay, cool.
And then have it on the bio, I think.
Yeah. And then we also help the folks who are running the No Ambler Road Instagram page too, and that we put out information pretty frequently about like updates and what's happening next. Like right now we're kind of waiting to figure out what's our next critical pressure point for intervening in this process. And I think the big one is going to be, we have an upcoming governor's race next fall, and then we have some local legislative elections too that we're really trying to organize and turn out
and
the
just
vote
like
for.
legislative advocacy within the state of Alaska. But
because one of the main pressure points for this road too is the road's not funded, and so the developers are going to be going to the state legislator to ask for appropriations to develop this road.
They're going to be asking taxpayers
for the money to build this
to
road.
build the road. And and I mean that's why it's going to not be a private road if it doesn't I don't know how to say it. If it were ever to be built, it would supposedly be private, but there's already a road in Alaska that was built as a private road, but you know, folks sued for access and now it's a public road and people go and hunt caribou along the side of that road, and it's just like awful. Like if you ever see pictures of those massive like caribou hunts, it's terrible. It's like it hurts your soul to look at. Like
the hunting and the draw for hunting big game in Alaska is huge. People all over the world come in for that. Some places are just
and there's so much waste, like just carcasses left behind.
Yeah, they don't like for us native people. When we get a caribou, we pretty much eat everything on the heart, the kidneys, tongue, all that stuff. We eat the head, the meat from the head, and all that. But when those outside hunters come in, they especially with caribou, they're only required to take the head for the antlers, of course, and the arms and legs. And they leave everything out there: ribs, brisket, backbone, all that. I've seen those where they do the hunts. It's sad. It's depressing.
Yeah.
Same with moose. They debone it. We make moose bone soup and all that. So the destruction of outside hunters is huge.
Yeah.
And we have predator problems up there with grizzly and wolves, so we always try to manage them as best we can to keep our land strong in our areas that we live. But outside hunters, they're not smart enough to catch those animals. They just want that antler on their wall for a story piece.
And I feel like Diloola should add in something about the success rates of hunters.
On road system.
We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, so I've been working on these harvest statistics in our region for the interior region, and it's really clear the hunter success rate for roaded communities, for local hunters, village hunters who are in roaded communities, is about 3.6%. So, and they get inundated by hunters like one of the areas, it's called Game Management Unit 20. It's like Fairbanks, Rampart, Nenana area. They had upwards of 5,000 hunters in their area last fall, and only 3% of the 1,000-something moose that were harvested out there were harvested by locals. Whereas when you get off the road system, the further out you get, the local hunter success rate goes up. So like communities that are down in they call it the middle Yukon area, it's like Caltech, Nulato, Kayakuk, Galena area, their hunter success rate was 33% for locals. And so when you're...
And the number of hunters were probably less, too, than around.
Yeah, there's only about 800 hunters out in that area, which is still a lot of pressure, right? It's still not a great success rate when you're dependent on this game for, your
it's
survival.
like they build these roads to extract, the minerals, but they're also extracting subsistence rights.
Yeah.
They're actually, and also like traditional hunting, but the people who originally from there, your relatives, your people, you're managing the population.
And even when we hunt caribou too, all the tribes, different tribes in Alaska that have caribous, they always let the first herd go by, the first bunches go by, so that the rest of the herd follows. It's part of the rules we follow. It's not state law or anything. It's just something we go by because it helps them keep their natural migration. But when you have a road system going through, they watch, the people in airplanes and all that are watching. When those caribou are coming through, they set up shop, sport hunters, people that...
And that
big
first
game
herd
hunting.
usually has the big animals too, right?
Yeah,
Like the
and then
leaders, the
they
big bulls,
intercept
and that's
them.
what they want, yeah.
That's what they do. They
And
intercept
even-
the migration. And
Yeah, even our moose populations, like we know we don't go after the biggest bull, right? We don't go after like the 60-inch racks or plus, right? Because we know that those are the breeders that
well, pretty much
stabilize
we
our
just take
population.
what the first one that come. Usually where I'm at is how we do it. We take the first one we see, but we're not picky.
But we're
about
not
it.
looking specifically
No.
for like a
Yeah.
big rack, that's not
Yeah.
part of like our hunting process. But those outside hunters that come in, they want those 60-inch,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
trophy,
64,
like,
70-inch ones.
hunt.
And
Yeah.
Call
And
them
those
in,
are,
harass them, kick them away, wait for another one.
yeah,
They're
and they
picky
also
about it.
they often have like the money to have the airplanes and all the
all the gear,
to
they
get
clear.
out
Yeah.
there, up into like the
Yeah.
breeding grounds and stuff. And so it can destabilize the
The
population.
roadway
pretty
in is
quick.
going to wreak havoc on the
Yeah.
moose, the caribou, the fish streams, spawning streams. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna begin to wrap up here. It's been really awesome having all of you on the show and coming all the way down from Alaska to the Oceti-Sakowee lands down here. We want to be able to continue to be supportive, and so I encourage all the listeners out there to follow at Defend the Sacred.
Yeah.
AK.
At Defend the Sacred AK.
At Defend the Sacred AK on Instagram, and to donate on the website, which is
Defend the Sacred AK.
Defend the Sacred AK
.org?
Dot
It's
org.
.org, I
Dot
think
org.
so,
It's
yeah.
.org.
And there's also on the Defend the Sacred AK.org website, there's a pledge to defend the Arctic. And so
Oh.
if people want to sign that pledge, we'll get your contact information. We can keep you updated that way too.
And then the No Ambler Road
Yeah.
Instagram page too.
Yeah.
Which is at No Ambler, I believe.
Road, yeah.
Road, yeah.
So follow all of those things for folks that are listening. Donate to the campaign. Buy the shirts. We'll put that in the comment section, because the work needs to be supported, and the organizing needs to continue. And I wanted to thank all of you for the work that you do. In behalf of your own communities, your own homelands. You have an ally and Conrad and NDN Collective to continue to support how we can, and amplify your stories and amplify your calls to action and the things that are happening there. We have a history of deep solidarity with many of the Alaska Native communities up there, and we want to continue to show solidarity and cross collaboration across the movement, because I think the Landback movement is fundamentally not just about one thing. It's about the liberation of Indigenous people and our homelands and our rights to exist, our rights to subsist, and our rights to sovereignty and make the decisions over our lives and our lands and to manage our lands, our people, and our relationship with Mother Earth in a powerful way. So we'll continue to be collaborators and to be partners and thought partners, and it is